I'm shown photos of people I don't recognize, or know, and don't recognize, or I swear I know but I've never met. And I wonder if these people know that I am considering them. I wonder if these people know what continues to happen in this courtyard. I wonder if these people know that they are part of the measurement of time. The years of a community are not defined by the community in whole. They are defined in the lives of its people. 20 years. 20 years of people.
JoSaen project started as in a sense, a Little Tokyo revitalization project, or a way to get folks to come back to Little Tokyo. In like the urban planning sense, Little Tokyo was a blighted neighborhood for much of its latter-day history in the 80s and 90s. People had left the neighborhood physically in a lot of ways. There weren't shops that were open past 6 o'clock most of the time. Residency had dwindled a lot because folks had sort of migrated out or been displaced. And it's important to recognize that Tuesday Night was an intentional, strategic effort to start to build something in that sort of absence of activity.
So a lot of things are starting to happen, and around that time, Tracy had gotten this idea of using the courtyard as a space to gather artists and whatnot. Since people were coming back to Union Church, with East-West players and visual communications activities, and using the visual communication space as a meeting place, seeing the whole spoken word and poetry slam craze, that was happening during the late 1990s and such, why not recreate that, in a space that is easily accessible?
And so to build something that was very grassroots, very specific and intentional and deliberate to Little Tokyo as a neighborhood to sort of begin to grow and sort of flower again, but it also introduced a new generation of people to the neighborhood, and to kind of begin to understand that it's this is a space with a lot of history, with a lot of context. We have a lot to learn from being here.
This is such a special space. This isn't a place where we're performing for each other. It's a space where we're opening up to each other. And that's when I fell in love. I was I want to be here all the time.
The first time I came, it felt very insular. It felt as though there wasn't a way in necessarily, because everybody was really tight-knit. But as soon as I opened myself up, I realized that it wasn't the community of Tuesday Night Project, it was more so me. Not opening myself to the opportunity to talk to other people and get to know them. And so when Sean was oh, I want to do this piece for, the opening, and, would you like to be a part of it as somebody new? I was just kind of I'm nervous, I'm scared, but I'll do it because, I came into this space to be open, and I came into this space to be challenged.
So at the time that I read, I had one piece. It was about coming into queerness. It was a very I'm figuring out my queer identity, this is my first piece about it type poem, and the audience was really receptive, and it was great to be able to be in an Asian American Pacific Islander space and be able to talk about my identity and queerness.
I think I played a song that was really new, I had just written it. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna do it even as I went on, but I felt so supported, and I felt everyone was so kind that I wasn't afraid to do it.
But I performed, and I truly felt it was okay to be human in front of these people. Unlike so many other spaces which I was performing at that time.
In a situation where, I felt nervous about sharing my story, I can't think of a better place to have done that than Tuesday Night Project, because of the way it was received and the culture of listening.
With TNC, it's everyone is so focused on making this moment special and making this moment feel good for everyone there.
And over the years, I realized that feeling, that learning that I was experiencing through other people, with other people, that was community.
Something that we include in the slogan a lot is art plus community. Tuesday Night Cafe at the end of the day was started by other artists who were looking for like-minded artists, and were looking for something different and new.
Tuesday Night Project was a place where I saw people be artists and activists together and come with their full selves, and figuring out how do we use the art and the poetry and the mic, how do we use that to uplift the voices of the margins? How do we push for the issues that are so important to us through art?
I think if there's anything that I learned from Tuesday Night Cafe, it was just the idea that a space is only a space when people come together and create that space. It's almost like a community doesn't exist until the people really make it into existence.
In the other organizing I do now that's not arts related, that's more direct action or political, so many of the connections that I have with other organizers and the relationships that I've built are based on the relationships that we've made through art and sharing story at Tuesday Night Cafe. I learned so much about the Asian American movement, about what it means to be API and hold all of these different identities, and also to really build trust through art and through vulnerability. I think I've really benefited from seeing how people use their art as their organizing, and to think of art and cultural work as pushing our movements forward.
How do we make sure that there's a voice for Asian Americans when it comes to these political issues? I don't think a lot of art spaces are able to understand community that way and know how to maintain that.
I feel like for the longest time, and maybe even still to this day, that my identity in this community, outside of just the work that I did, was intertwined with Tuesday night. But I think my most precious memories are just of, the people in my life coming to the space for the first time and being able to introduce, new friends or people who were unfamiliar with Tuesday night. Bringing them into that space and just watching them as they kind of experience that for the first time has been probably the best moments for me.
I just hope TNC never changes. But I guess I hope what never changes about TNC is the spirit.
I hope that it grows and changes with the times and the needs of the community, but I also hope it still has that feel where some kid sitting in his room anywhere in Southern California can come to the space and try something and come be a part of this community.
I hope it never becomes another place to put like perfectionist kind of expectations on people. I hope it never becomes a place where storytelling is not number one. I hope it never becomes a place where people feel judged. And I hope it never becomes a place where you can't bring yourself as you are.
And Tuesday night is such a pillar, an exemplar of that type of encouragement and cultivation and love for people that aim to take a risk.
I learn from TNC. It always is a space where I can say, I don't know everything, and I'm humbled enough to learn from everybody who performs there, who speaks there, and who congregates there. And that's what I've always admired about TNC. It comes with no judgment, but it comes with an air of learning together. We can all evolve together, which is really sometimes really difficult. And change is hard. Change is, trying to resist because we all feel more comfortable, more safe in how we think and how we live. But if it's not inclusive of everybody, it needs to be more safe and it needs to be more comfortable for a lot more people than we know.
We are buying for the people. And I think that's also reflected in the way that we staff this thing, because none of us are paid for what we do. We do this purely out of love and I guess just passion for what happens here in the space, and because we all feel like we have a personal stake in what happens, and that we see that it's important that this keeps going. I think it gives me a very strong appreciation for the fact that we are able to put this on every first and third Tuesday, April through October, and that none of us are above doing anything at any point. So it's not just the actual stage managing responsibilities, it's everything else that comes with the territory as well. So like we say, no one's above wrapping cable.
Every city needs a TNC. Every city needs this kind of place for artists and audiences who support artists to kind of meet and commune together and feel free and feel like part of each other's process.
Spaces like Tuesday Night Project are not necessarily rare, but I think the longevity of them is rare.
Tuesday Night has been able to kind of maintain not only its presence, but grow it, is a testament kind of to the people behind it. So I guess in the next, 5, 10, 15 years, wanted to make sure that people can come and kind of make it their own. I think if it was just the same thing that it was, 15, 20, whatever years ago, then I would actually be kind of sad about the cafe, about Tuesday Night, and that, it hadn't evolved with the rest of us, but it has.
And to have kind of a history of a community that will kind of stay consistent in people's lives, I think is really important. The people that have been around since, you know, the very beginning are still coming around. Maybe not every day, but they're still there and they still support in the various ways that they do. I think that speaks mountains to the kind of connection that this space has brought.
The virtue of Tuesday Night Project is that its intentions have always been and will always be in the act of showing love. Hopefully those collections of human beings who gather in that Tuesday Night Cafe space or Tuesday Night Project event, that we all can try our hardest to be loving and to make sure that it lives, it breathes, it exists, and that hopefully it will be planted in a fertile ground so that it can grow.
Tuesday night for me was a place of healing and home, and I want it to be home for everyone.
It's been 21 years since I wondered what we might be able to do in this empty courtyard. I wonder how to honor 20 years of people doing this. There will be a day when we see another door close in Little Tokyo, when we say goodbye here and say hello in the next continuum. There will be a day when there will be this day, in that day, in this day, in that day, in this. And we will remember never to forget.